Someone roars, Bobby scores at the good old hockey game. Oh, the good old hockey game.
All right, there you go.
You candy name.
Andy Strickland joins us to talk a little hockey, a little sports, a little St. Louis, the man who loves to drop more names than John Carney. Ladies and gentlemen, Andy Strickland. Fox Sports Midwest, Hockey Sense. When's Hockey Sense?
Tonight.
What time?
8 o'clock.
Obie Clark's?
We will be there, absolutely.
Among your guests?
Jamal Mayers will be among my guests, and we are efforting who else we're going to have on the program. We'll have a good one for you, though. I can promise you that.
All right. Now, do you want to tell this story about what you're doing after the show today?
Well, yeah, Pat LaFontaine. LaFontaine.
Why don't you get LaFontaine on the show tonight?
I might. He's here. He's got a great charity, Companions in Courage.
Yes.
Where they renovate and create playrooms in children's hospitals.
Okay.
And they've created like little video game kiosks. They can put bedside next to sick kids and stuff like that. Very, very cool stuff he's been doing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's huge in his area where he lives, in Buffalo, New York.
Is he from Buffalo, New York?
He's from Michigan.
Oh.
Hold on. Originally, he's from St. Louis. See, this is where I'm getting at. So at about 11:30 today, I'm going to pick him up from the hotel.
At the Motel 6.
Yeah, and we're going to go to Kirkwood Ice Rink,
okay,
where there is a display with his jersey, some pictures of him, and just kind of revisit, go back in time. He moved from St. Louis when he was 7 years of age, but he still says he remembers it very well and still credits St. Louis for being the place where he fell in love with the game and learned how to skate.
Really?
Yeah, and this guy's a Hall of Famer. So there's a guy who lives in town who I met last night, and hopefully Pat LaFontaine isn't listening. But his family was very close with the LaFontaines when they lived here.
Okay.
Pat LaFontaine's dad worked for Chrysler. That's why he ended up getting transferred and moved to Detroit, to Michigan.
Is the LaFontaine family, did they come with Lafayette to St. Louis?
No,
See what
I
I did
don't.
there?
Yeah,
little French connection there?
I saw what you did.
Okay.
But no, I don't think he did. Anyway, so the but this family was very, very close. So there's a gentleman who his kids were about the same age as Pat LaFontaine and his sisters and whatever. He's about 90 years old right now.
Yeah.
But when Pat LaFontaine would come into St. Louis to play against the Blues, he would always get together and have dinner with his family and see these guys. And so this guy who lives in St. Louis, who hasn't seen LaFontaine in several years, is going to meet us at the rink and surprise Pat LaFontaine.
Oh, isn't that a nice story? So, are you bringing along the Fox Sports Midwest cameras?
Yeah, so we'll have cameras and obviously be able to tell the story through video on an upcoming Blues game. Looking forward to it.
Oh, that's a nice story. Now, LaFontaine was drafted by the Islanders.
Was it the Islanders? Was he drafted? Yeah.
He came up
Third
with
overall,
the Islanders.
Yeah.
He didn't win a Stanley Cup with the Islanders, I don't think. Then he was traded to the Penguins?
Yeah, he played in Buffalo for a long, long time. Yeah.
Okay.
And, this guy was a tremendous hockey player, over 1,000 points, close to 500 goals. Two-time 50-goal scorer. I think he scored more than 4 or 5 times in his career.
That was back when you could score goals in the NHL.
Yeah, and his career ended early because of concussions. This is before concussions were the story they are today, obviously. He's now 53 years of age, but he's now working for the National Hockey League. This charity has going on, though. I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. Companions in Courage is what it's called. And they're doing something here with Children's Hospital. Press conference later on this afternoon as well. So we'll have a day with Pat LaFontaine. You never know where life is going to take you.
I told you he'd drop a couple of names along the way, didn't I? You were big into the Rams. You had inside info on the Rams in the stadium. What do you think of this Kevin Demoff, Jeff Fisher debacle?
Just watching the whole press conference, he looked very uncomfortable. And he allowed the L.A. media to kind of run and handle this press conference and control the press conference.
Yes.
He kind of was acting like a fifth-grade math teacher. He'd be like, well, just like Susie said in her previous question, and like Bobby said a few minutes ago, and to get back to Andrew's question, it's like, dude, you don't have to answer every question. I've never seen an executive when, people are asking about the job status of the general manager, and he's basically throwing the GM under the bus.
What did he say about Les Snead?
Well, he just said, people asked, is he going to come back? Well, as opposed to saying, you know what, we'll evaluate everybody, and we're not going to comment on that right now.
Right.
He starts going in on, well, if we look at other GM candidates, and if we consider other GM candidates, here's what we're going to be looking for, and here's when we'd like to interview a GM candidate.
Right.
And we'd like to have a GM before a new head coach. I mean, this guy, it was just almost silly watching it, and you almost felt bad for him because he was so uncomfortable dealing with the media there in L.A., and it was just one lie after another.
Well, I'm shocked. I mean, he was the fall guy here in St. Louis. He was the guy the Rams trotted out to answer all the questions.
Sure.
And
But he doesn't take any heat. That's the problem. This guy runs the show, and people who know the Rams and have been around there realize he's got way more control than people realize, and it's always the heat on the coach and the GM, and I understand that.
But he
takes absolutely none.
Well, but he's the whipping boy for Kroenke, though, right? I mean, Kroenke doesn't want to deal with that stuff, so he hires this guy and this guy.
Yeah.
Kroenke says, do this, and this guy does it.
And he's not really capable of doing it. But he hasn't been honest for years. I mean, it's kind of funny. Even this press conference, they were calling him out on some of the comments that he made just a couple of weeks ago where he's completely flip-flopped in a matter of 14 days.
Well, right, because didn't he say, hey, we're a lot better than what we thought? This is, it's very hard to we're moving.
Watching this from afar now and, having used to kind of be around it, not as much as like a Jim Thomas, for example, but I was around the Rams a good amount. It's almost like the Rams are now being exposed for who they've always been.
Yes.
Okay, we always knew.
Yes.
Nobody ever called them out on it here in St. Louis.
I would agree.
For the most part.
Well, and if they did, it didn't go anywhere because St. Louis isn't a bubble.
And so now it's not just the media who are calling them out. It's the celebrity culture. When you have Rob Lowe and Snoop Dogg. And, Eric,
when you got Snoop Dogg calling you out, that's bad.
And Eric Dickerson, let's face it, he's more of a celebrity than media, right? I mean, and now he's calling you out. That's what, that was probably the final nail in the coffin for Jeff Fisher. But, talking to some people who are close to the Rams still, they fully believe that was Jeff Fisher doing the dirty work for Kevin Demoff. And it was Demoff who didn't want Dickerson on the sideline more than Jeff Fisher. People who know Jeff Fisher will tell you he doesn't care about that type of stuff. He's never really cared about it in the past, but that would be something that Demoff would really care about. So it's kind of interesting to see the whole dynamic.
According to Jim Thomas, and according to Jim Thomas sources, we had Jim Thomas on yesterday was saying that when Jeff Fisher was asked about coaching the Rams, he was asked all sorts of questions about moving and how do you move and what were the logistics and the good and the bad and the ugly. And Jeff Fisher was a little surprised when he took the job. But the theory was that he was the coach who was going to be able to help them move.
Because he had done it before.
Because he had done it before.
He had Southern California roots as well.
Right. And so he doesn't even last one season, the honeymoon season, as they move.
They didn't want to fire him, McGraw. They
didn't want to fire him because now they got to pay him, and now they got to pay another coach.
They just didn't want to fire him, and now they're forced to do so. So they're going to be looking for a new GM as well. I still think they need to clean house completely. I mean, to focus it, all of your energy solely on Jeff Fisher probably isn't fair when you consider the other people that are in the building as well. Listen, he hasn't done a good job at all. Don't get me wrong. He should have been fired a long time ago. But the reality is, it's not just him. They need to clean house in Los Angeles.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's what Andy Strickland thinks. What's going on with your Blues? How'd they lose last night?
Well, that wasn't very good, McGraw. You got a 3-0.
Hold on a second. They don't call him the best color man in the business for nothing. Up 3-0, lose 6-3. That wasn't very good.
You don't like that to happen.
Andy Strickland.
To be honest with you, they went up 3-0 in the second period. And I'm looking up when's the last time the Blues lost back-to-back games, because I was saying to myself, wow, every time they lose, they find a way to come back and respond.
That's what I thought. Adversity.
But, to see them lose the game in the fashion that they did, Jake Allen, who's your number one goaltender.
He's a bum.
He's been sensational much of the season. That was not his best game last night.
And then where are we with tickets for the Winter Classic?
Well, I mean, it's going to be a sellout. I'm sure if those of you out there who truly want tickets, you can maybe find somebody who is looking to get rid of a couple, or maybe who knows somebody.
Who's looking to get rid of a couple? You are no help to me. I hope you're not help to anybody else.
Are you really looking for a couple?
I have secured a couple of tickets.
Yeah.
No thanks to you.
Yeah.
Thanks to a website or two that may or may not have charged me more than the face value of the ticket.
May or may not have. It's going to be unbelievable. I'm curious what the weather is going to be out there.
But I couldn't, either
is it going to be like this, though, or are we going to have snow? What are we going to have? Do you know?
Either I'm losing my juice, or there's not tickets to be had for this game.
No. Well, it's a hot item.
This is the hottest ticket ever in St. Louis.
I think outside of maybe the Final Four.
Outside of Game 7 of the World Series.
And Game 7 of the World Series. This is probably bigger than the Final Four. Outside of Game 7 of the World Series, or just a World Series game in general, or Game 7 in the NLCS, whatever, this is probably the biggest event in the history of St. Louis sports. Obviously, we haven't had Super Bowls that have been played in St. Louis.
Right.
If they were,
I wasn't in town for a Cardinals ticket during McGuire's run. But as somebody who dabbles in trying to finagle tickets to go see events in St. Louis, this is the hardest ticket in town to get.
Yeah.
And which is why I may or may not have to go to a website and may or may not have paid more than face value for the ticket.
You know what? At least you're going to be there to tell us about it.
I got them for somebody else. I didn't even get them for myself.
I'll tell Pat LaFontaine you said hi.
How come Pat LaFontaine isn't? He should be on Hockey Sense tonight.
I'm going to try to get him on Hockey Sense.
Why don't you work a little mojo?
I don't know what his travel schedule is, if he's leaving early or whatever, but
he can talk about Al Arbor, coach of the Islanders.
He
when he
absolutely
was there,
can.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Andy Strickland. Tonight,
right,
8 o'clock?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, Obie Clark's Hockey Sense with our good friend Andy Strickland, who will drop a couple of names during Hockey Sense tonight. Hubert Associates.